February to order. Just as a reminder, this meeting is being audio and video recorded, and may I please have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second,
Thank you, Peter.
second. Oh, yeah, aye. Aye, slow today.
This will be fun.
Yeah.
Chris. Oh,
Aye.
Chris.
Oh,
I thought you said Chris already.
Joe, I didn't hear you.
No.
Sorry. Joe,
aye.
Jill. Aye. Jeremy.
Aye.
Denise. Aye. Stephen. Sorry.
Aye.
And Joanna. All right, I'm gonna just say approved. I'm opening up the agenda for public comments. Is anyone raising their hand? Seeing no one's raising their hand, I'm closing public comment, and now I'm turning it over to review and discussion of the fiscal year 2024 school budget. And Beth, Dr. Hallett, we will start with you, I'm sure. And Maria's pulling up the document as we speak. There we go. And Beth, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was starting off and all of a sudden no one could hear me. Okay, so thank you very much. Much appreciated. First of all, again, thanks for having us come. We are very pleased to be able to share the budget with you and explain a little bit about our budget process. We begin our budget planning in October, and it is a group effort. We absolutely include everybody on our leadership team as part of the budget planning process. So I want to take a moment to thank the district leadership team who is here, and they have been part of that budget planning since the beginning. This year is a little bit challenging because we have a few different elements and parameters that we've needed to look at besides our usual parameters, which are student enrollment, student needs. We've had to take into account some of the uncertainties that we've been faced with this year, such as inflation and utilities prices and some other issues that have come up. And we are in a contractual negotiation year as well. So that is something that we've kept in the back of our minds as we've planned our budget for 2024. So next slide, please. So this slide shows the enrollment. This is the enrollment summary from 2011 to 2024, which is our projected enrollment for next year. You will notice that over the course of the last 13 years, we have definitely seen growth. However, there has been a bit of a plateau from. Oh, can everybody hear me?
She was on the next one. You have 2011 to 2024 MPS enrollments. The slide
Summary.
number 2, the slide you're speaking about?
Yes,
Yes.
slide 2.
Oh,
So there was a one,
thank you.
Oh,
there was a one that was like.
I am paying attention. Okay.
Sorry.
All right, go ahead, Beth.
Sorry.
This is one of
No
those
problem. No, I was on the introductory slide before. I'm sorry I didn't tell you that, Maria. So, so this slide basically shows, as I said, our enrollment summary from 2011 to 2024. And you will see at the total number at the bottom, I'll just allude to that. We've had, I'd say from 2018, 2017, 18, we've had a fairly stable, just slight growth over the course of the years from 2018 to 2023, with a projection of a little bit more than 1,700 in the next year. We are seeing this little bit of a plateau, most likely due to cost of living. Obviously, that's, and availability of living, things like that. So we keep that in mind, that most likely, and also we do know that there is a bubble of students that is coming up from the large population boom that happened before 2017, and that was that caused the creation of the intermediate school. So this larger group of students will be moving through the high school and graduating over the course of the next 3 years. So then we expect our enrollment to level out a little bit, and we'll see from there how things go. But certainly for this year, we had to keep in mind that the high school will be a little bit more busy than usual. Go ahead, Maria, next slide. So this slide is the historical enrollment by grade from 2001 to 2022. And it's really kind of a fascinating slide. This shows the school year from 2001 to 2022, all of our grades and our subgroup percentages. And one of the things to notice is that our subgroups have changed drastically since 2001. So in 2001, 90% of our students were white and 10% more or less were other. So that would be students of color, Hispanic, African American, or other. So if you fast forward 20 years, and you will notice that with the growth of our population, we have also seen an absolute shift from majority white to majority students of color. This year we are at 46% students of color. Actually, last year, 40% students white, and then so at this point it would be 54% students of color. So this is important because we include students who are English learners, and so we need to keep in mind the importance of the services that may be needed to assist students of color if they have language needs, if they have special needs, special populations in general. We know that that is important area to look at, and to make sure that there is the support in our district, in our budget, to make sure that they can be successful in accessing our curriculum and moving forward through their educational years. Next slide, please. So this shows our English learner population from 2006 to 2024. You will see quite a bit of growth from 2006, but we are starting to see in our final years from, say, 2020 to 2023, things are leveling out a little bit. We have a little bit of growth between 2021 and 22 to 2022, 23. And we do expect a little bit of growth in the coming year, but definitely this is one of our largest growing populations. And with this group comes the need for special services, and that's important. We want to make sure that we have the supports in place so that we can make them successful and have everything available to them. In many cases, also in multiple languages. So this is an important part of our budget, and you will see as we continue to explain more about the asks that we're putting in place, and these are related directly to our English learner population. Next slide. We also have our special education population, which is also growing a little bit. You'll see that that growth began really specifically in around 2017-18 and continues to grow. So special education population numbers are really interesting to me because as we are on an island, we don't have the same, we can't necessarily draw from the same resources that districts that have collaborative districts and collaboratives around, where they could potentially send a student that needs special services away to a school. For us, it's much more challenging. We have to provide all of our services on the island. So this is an important part of our budget as well. And we look very carefully at our enrollment here and at the needs of the students. So very important part of our budget as well. We are always tracking the growth. Next slide, please. And this is Martin.
Hi. So every year we start the budget development, obviously, with the existing current FY23 budget, and in this case, this is $34,426,000. We presented to the school committee back in October, together with Superintendent Hallett, a roll forward number, which means taking all existing and known contract obligations, as well as expected increases in any contract, such as transportation contract with Cape Cod Collaborative, and other utility forecasts, and everything is taken into consideration when we present this roll forward number. That this year was a big number. It was $1.5 million. And in communication with the finance director of the town, Brian Turbit, and the town manager, Libby Gibson, we asked for $2.1 million, and we were given $2.1 million increase, which allows us some flexibility to do some additions to our budget as well as cover all these contractual obligations that we know currently exist. As everybody knows, we are currently in negotiations as well with our biggest union, which is the teachers union. So we, depending on the outcome of those negotiations, we will see whether we'll be able to cover any new additions, or we'll have to just cover contractual obligations. And just wanted to make a notation. Last year, as part of our appropriation, we had a $200,000 one-time expense increase request. So this, in effect, the projected increase, even though on paper in Article 8 it would say $2.1 million, is actually in effect $2.3 million, because last year we received $200,000 for some curriculum purchases, new curriculum supplies and textbooks. And this year we do not have any one-time expense increase request. So the de facto increase is $2.3 million. Next slide, please. On the next slide, you'll see this actually represents my time being with the school district. This wasn't by design. This is all that this chart can hold, is 9 years. So I've been here 9 years. When I came here, the budget of the district was a little over $25 million. And the projected budget for next year is close to $11.5 million more than it was just 9 years ago. Granted, as you can see, as you remember, 2017, we opened a new school, which required additional staffing. That was our biggest addition to the budget, outside of just normal increases contractually or any kind of additions. So that's the history of our budget is seen here. Next slide, please. This is per pupil expenditure. We always present to see where we fall in comparison to the average cost, the average expenditure per student within Massachusetts. The latest numbers available are 2021. State is a little slow in providing those numbers. So, but we've stayed consistently in the 6,000 to 6,500 range difference, meaning Nantucket spends more than the average in the state of Massachusetts by about $6,000 every year. Next slide, please. Chapter 70. First, this year marks the 30th anniversary. It was originally introduced back in 1993 as an addition to the budget. Back then, the effort of Chapter 70 has always been to make sure that every district can provide adequate education to its constituents. And prior to 1993, this all fell on taxpayer dollars. State did not participate in that formula. Chapter 70 was created to kind of not even the playing field per se, but make it more equitable for every district to be able to provide that adequate education to its students. And it has evolved. In 2019, as part of the Student Opportunity Act, there were new categories introduced. The emphasis today falls on 5 additional categories, which are benefits and fixed charges, guidance and psychological services, special education, out-of-district tuition, English learners, and low-income students. Low-income students, for instance, has changed a lot for Nantucket. The perception of Nantucket being an affluent location and affluent school district is a little misleading. We have 47% of our students qualify as low-income students. So we are in the 8th percentile on a chart that includes 12, that totals 12 categories, meaning we fall between 42 and 48% of low-income students. So that plays an effect in our Chapter 70. As luck would have it, today we received the preliminary estimate for FY24 Chapter 70 funds, and Brian would be happy with the number. We're projected to increase about $453,000 in Chapter 70 funds in FY24. Of course, that requires additional votes. This is by no means a final number. This is just a projected increase at this point. The budget discussions are just starting, so they will be finalized somewhere in the summer or early fall. And In the chapter 70, just to finish up, because that can be sometimes confusing. It's our foundation budget for FY24 was projected by the state $25,200,000. Obviously, we're asking for a lot more, but that's the bare minimum budget that the state forecasts that the Nantucket would need to educate all its students, based on different factors. Next slide, please.
And I think
that's
that's back to me.
back.
So, so obviously, we really try to offset our regular or general budget by grants, and so our federal grants are really an important part of our funding as well. So these are the grants that we currently hold, and I just want to make sure that you're aware of what they actually mean. The first one, the largest one, which is almost 75% of all of our grant funding, is the IDEA grant, and this goes to students with special needs, so special services. We also have Title I, which is the next largest, at $68,480. Now, the interesting thing about Title I is that recently there was a drastic change, in fact, a drop in our Title I funding. And this came from the most recent census data, because the federal grants follow the census data. Even though you heard from Martin prior that we have that we are at 40 to 48% economically disadvantaged students in our district, the federal government doesn't believe so, because our census did not show that. And that may be because of inequities or uncertainties and in the census itself. Some people did not take the census on Nantucket. So interestingly enough, that's what we're dealing with. Unfortunately, that drop does cause us some challenges. We use a lot of that money towards our summer school program, for example. So, that's something we've had to deal with. The other grants that we use, the Title II grant, is for preparation, training, and recruitment of high quality teachers and principals. So this goes towards professional learning, conferences, et cetera. Also, some of that goes towards mentoring, making sure that we have a strong mentor program in place for our newest teachers. Title III is for multilingual learners. So that is specifically for our English as a second language program and the students that are involved there. And then finally, Title IV, which is professional services. And so that also goes towards professional development, consulting, and anything related to our mentoring program as well. There is one other grant that is still part of what we're able to use up until the end of FY24, and that is the ESSER grant. The ESSER grant was related to COVID, and we have been very strategic in our spending of the ESSER grants and have spent as much as we can. So we are definitely due to being able to exhaust all of the funding in our ESSER offerings. And that's it for our federal grants. So next slide, please. So this is the breakdown of the FY 2024 budget as it stands. You will notice that there are pretty equal parts of the pie around our schools and our central office. Nantucket High School does have the largest, but they also have the largest number of students and the largest number of services based on multiple content areas taught, multiple classrooms. We have our vocational program, et cetera. So that is definitely the largest piece. NES, the elementary school, the intermediate school, and middle school have more, I'd say, more equitable areas of the budget. Central office takes care of all the professional development, a lot of the curriculum piece as well. So buying materials for the also for the schools, et cetera. The facilities budget is also coming next, then technology, and finally athletics is our smallest part of the budget. Next slide, please. This just shows that, oh, this is Martin. Sorry, Martin, go ahead.
No, that's fine. This is a simple breakdown of the budget into payroll and operating. As you can see, the payroll is eating the operating expense budget slowly but surely. In our case, just 5 years ago, the split was 80-20, which is, in my opinion, a more realistic and a better balanced budget. Right now, it's becoming 84-16. So our payroll has taken over, but we shouldn't forget that the operating expense is how we maintain our buildings, pay utilities for them, and do professional development, supplies, textbooks, Chromebooks, and that is a part that we need to maintain. But unfortunately, that's the reality of the service of the industry we operate in. Everywhere across Massachusetts, this is a typical breakdown of a budget, of a school budget nowadays. Next slide, please. The community school revenue breakdown. I did send separately. You've probably received a packet of all the budgets that we've presented. So community school revenue breakdown. This is a slide just to show how it breaks, how the revenues break for the community school. As you can see in FY24, we forecast around $173,000 of gifts and donations. We're very thankful for all the organizations that support the community school. Without their help, it would have been almost impossible to maintain any semblance of operations throughout the COVID period specifically. Community Foundation for Nantucket remain, Nantucket Golf Foundation, Nantucket Education Trust. There is a numerous small donors help the community school maintain and keep a affordable the services that it provides. We project participant fees, which means all the revenues that are collected at around $858,000. And the appropriation, we reached out to town and spoke with town administration and the finance department of the town to be able to add $50,000 to the appropriation, because with the growing cost of the medical insurance specifically, it's becoming very challenging to balance that budget. Medical costs for the community school, just to let you know, they're paid by the community school, and they are forecast to grow by $35,000 next year. Next slide, please.
Okay,
Back
this
to
is
Beth.
me. So as we are building our budget, and as we were in the planning from October, we wanted to set some parameters. So the district leadership team came up with these particular priorities. In particular, the first one is that we wanted to make sure that we were recommending budget needs that are linked to the district and school goals. We have a district improvement plan that we follow very carefully around what our needs are and what our expectations are. This also, we were paying very careful attention in this area, in this time of need for our students who are special populations. So we wanted to make sure that access and equity for all students was a large part of our conversation around budget. We also expected that building budgets for the 23-24 school year are based on projected enrollments, curricular needs, and the general health and well-being of our students. We asked building principals and district directors to identify those essential services for their students, and we wanted to make sure we continued to support programs that sustain physical, social, and emotional development of our students, especially after the challenges that we've been through from the recent pandemic. We wanted to develop all of our budgets to be more closely reflective of actual expenditures in the last 3 years, and tapping revenue streams other than our operating budget, including the federal and state grant opportunities, which we explained a little bit earlier, and other partnerships and local partnerships with our nonprofit organizations. That's an important part of the planning as well. And finally, budgeting our utility expenses to reflect our actual expenditures over the last 3 years. Next slide, please. So these are our requests for the 2024 school year. We would like to see an additional 0.2 full-time employee added to one of our educational support personnel in the front office of Nantucket Elementary School. Nantucket Elementary School is the second largest school in our district, and there is a lot of traffic that comes in and out of the school, especially with their youngest students being housed in this school. So having 2 full-time ESPs in the front office is essential. One of our front office ESPs is bilingual, and and the population of Nantucket Elementary School, it continues to grow with multilingual families joining our schools. At the Nantucket Intermediate School, we are hoping to add a 0.2 to our library teacher. We currently have a library teacher at 0.8, but to be able to really enjoy and have to the fullest extent the services of our librarian and our library teacher, it would be best for us to have a full-time teacher. That way the library can function as a full library with all of the advantages and the opportunities for students throughout the day. For our English learner department, we would like to add a full-time SEI coach. SEI stands for Sheltered English Instruction. And this coach works with mainstream teachers, not with ESL teachers, but also with ESL teachers, I should say, to support using strategies to work with English learners who are in regular mainstream classes. This is very important, particularly at our highest grades, as we are seeing more English learners coming in at our high grades, and we need to make sure that our teachers are prepared to support them in their classrooms. So we would like to add a coach. We have one currently.
Uh-oh.
So we frozen too? No, just.
Learners. And for our facilities and grounds department, particularly in our grounds department, to our campus, we have a new baseball field and new tennis courts. And with that comes more need for assistance in making sure our grounds and facilities are up to snuff. So those are our expectations for increasing staff next year. Next slide, please. So what will we accomplish with our budget? So these are the things that we assume we will see as the positives throughout the course of next year. We hope to see additional attention and be able to add additional attention to closing gaps in learning and addressing heightened social emotional needs of our students due to the recent pandemic. We also hope to see stronger support with special education evaluation and services, more sheltered English instruction strategies and support across grades 3 through 12, increased front office assistance at NES, as mentioned, better student and staff access to the NIS library programming, and finally, appropriate staffing for our grounds department with the additional campus facilities with a new baseball field and tennis courts. Next slide.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
And Martin, thank you very much. And so I'll turn to the committee, and who has questions? Jill?
Thanks, Beth and Martin, and I'm really excited to see the new tennis courts. I drove over there to check them out. So I was surprised how quickly that got done. I was very impressed. And on that, I wanted to ask, are you all considering bringing back the idea of a track and a turf field at some point in the future, or that's just not on the table right now?
Well, we are certainly keeping it in mind. We don't want to give up on that. We don't know where the future of turf fields are going anyway. And I've recently read information about Massachusetts legislators who are trying to completely do away with PFAS and such. So I don't think this is anything that will be on our immediate capital agenda in the next year or two, but we certainly don't want to give up, especially on our new track and new grandstand facilities. Or not the field in between the track will be a grass field or a turf field, will depend on legislation that may come up and other things as well. So we're certainly continuing to explore, but at the moment we are not pushing forward in that. And also we want to make sure that the Nantucket community is in full support. So that's another piece.
Yeah. Okay, good. And then jumping to the out of district per pupil. On that, how much money do you spend per pupil to say, but this is for kids that go to school off island, yeah?
Yes, off-island expenses for an out-of-district placement can be anywhere between $150,000 to almost $300,000 per year. So it is expensive to send children off island, and we try our very hardest, as I mentioned, especially around our special needs population, to keep children on the island so that they can flourish in their community and be closer to their relatives. So, that is it is quite an expense. Although there are some students that just cannot be educated in our district. We don't have the resources ourselves, or it is something that is decided among a team of educators and professionals that an out of district placement is more appropriate.
So is that costing the town what, between $1 and $1.5 million, or is it more than that?
We currently have, I'd say, Martin, maybe you can help me. We have about 7 or 8 students. Is that correct? Or do we have more than that? I'm trying to remember. About 7 or 8, I think. So yes, I would say around 1.5.
Okay. And then lastly, on the special needs teachers, because that's such an increase, I assume they actually get paid at a higher rate than other teachers. Maybe they have to have higher schooling. I'm not sure, but
Nope, they are part of the contracted, they are in our contracted bargaining agreement. So they follow the same pay schedule. Yep.
have you had a hard time attracting special needs teachers?
The teachers themselves, no, but some of our special services, such as physical therapy, occupational therapy, we've really struggled across not just the state, not just the community and the state, but the entire country for school psychologists. So that is a very, very difficult position to fill, and we have had that problem here as well. So it is hard to find talented people, and but we're doing our best to uncover every rock and figure out every thinking outside the box idea in order to attract people to come. And we've been very lucky that we have filled all of our social worker positions. We were without social workers last year. We only had 2 out of 4, and now we have 4, which is fantastic.
Oh, good. And lastly, sorry, Beth.
Lastly.
Sorry, the kids, we didn't see, I know we don't get to see things really at a granular level, but you have a number of students who are on an IEP, is that right? And
Yes.
is that number been going up as well recently, or is that also leveled off?
So it's we see it depends on who arrives in the district. Sometimes children come to the district with special needs already, and so they will automatically be part of that and need an IEP. We have seen growth in IEPs, but one of the things that's important to us is that we are following the regular pathway and the regular steps on determining whether or not a student is eligible for an IEP. So, it is our goal to make sure that we are giving students all the services that they need in the least restrictive environment. So for that reason, we try to only provide IEPs for students who need them, and they go through a very specific identification process and eligibility process. So that's really important, and we want to make sure that we are not over-identifying students for IEPs, and that we are giving them the services that they need, not over-serving.
Are those from grade school all the way through high school, or is that
Correct.
just off high school? Oh, so it
All
is
the way
whole.
through.
So how many students do you have on an IEP?
I think it's about 20% of our district. So if we have about 1,700 students, that would be
340.
350, 315, somewhere around there. Good job.
You need a math teacher?
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. I appreciate your time, Beth. And,
No problem.
Peter, and then Joe.
Beth, how many openings do you have right now for faculty?
Currently for faculty, we have about 12 openings still.
And how many did you have last year at this time?
Openings during the school year in the middle of the year? Oh goodness, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if it was around the same. Staffing has been a real challenge, and that is not just here in this community, but across the state and across the nation. I just returned from a national superintendent's conference, and that was the topic, that was the hot topic. Everybody was talking about recruitment and retention. So it is a nationwide crisis.
So when you throw housing into it, it becomes even worse here.
Yes, it does.
And have you lost any teachers this year because of housing?
We haven't lost teachers per se because of housing, but the stress that having unstable housing it has and puts on teachers is a real problem. And one thing that I always talk about too is, our teachers do work 10 months, but we expect them to be full members of our year-round community. And by saying to them, well, there is some 10-month housing available for you, but then once that housing is up, you got to leave. That's unfair and really it's counterproductive. We want them to be a full part of the year-round community because they are so instrumental in making sure our children are growing up as healthy and happy citizens of Nantucket. So that is a real struggle. That year-round housing is so important and very coveted. So the more we can offer and the more opportunities that can come up for year-round housing, the better for teachers and the better for our school system.
Last part, who goes into that 10-month housing for the summer months?
It's usually either tourists or, if 10-month housing is up, then the
Oh,
remainder of that time is,
you're renting housing from individuals
yes,
and they're, okay,
yes,
thank you.
sure.
Joe,
That was exactly the questions I was gonna ask. so.
Chris?
Okay. Yeah, so, good afternoon, Beth. I have a, maybe it's more of a statement. Thanks for the great presentation. The slide on per pupil expenditures slide I love, but I think it maybe is a little misleading to the community. Because, it's easy to look at that 6,000 delta and say, look what a great job we're doing at investing in our students compared to the mean. But you made a great point about the additional costs of not having additional services in the community to offer, so you have to take those costs on. I wonder if it's possible with that slide to look at how much of that delta is just, components of the cost of doing business on Nantucket, as well as those additional things you have to do that you wouldn't have to do if you weren't on an island. And then maybe compare it not to the average of the state, but I think one year you showed us other counties, sort of the list of counties, which would make it easier for us to say, where do we think Nantucket, a AAA rated town, should be investing in its students relative to the rest of the Commonwealth? And I think it wouldn't feel as good to the community about where we are today, relative to where we might be. Just a thought.
Absolutely.
So
No,
Chris-
absolutely. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Chris, funnily enough, as you said that, I pulled that up on my phone, and there are some interesting numbers out there. Andover is 111,000 per student, Barnstable is 90,000 per student, and Boston comes in at 1.3 million per student. So,
Wow.
yeah, so all of a sudden 26 is,
Yeah.
anyway. But I mean, I looked at the extreme ones. There were also ones that were 5,000 and 6,000 per student,
But-
so.
But the point Beth made at the outset about it, it had to do with, I think, additional service for students who need them that would be otherwise available sort of regionally if you weren't on an island.
Yeah,
I think some people don't understand well. I mean, we face that at the hospital certainly in many ways as well. And that number, you would shrink that delta down to probably zero if you look at all the additional costs of doing business on this island.
thank you. Joanna, then Jeremy.
Okay, I've just got a couple of questions. First question is, so if we have, I'm just looking at some of the statistics that you shared. So 36% of the students are either English learners or part of the special education area, right? That's a little bit more than a third of your total population.
Yes, it's a little bit lower. I'd say students who are English learners are around 22% and the same around special education. They're pretty equal.
Okay, so then if you layer on top of that, because I think I heard you also say that 48% of the student population was economically disadvantaged, right?
Mhm.
Right, and then I'm curious about two things, one of which is what is the graduation rate and what is the college acceptance rate? And then I have another question.
So the graduation rate, I don't have the number on the top of my head, but I believe it's around 88%, maybe even a little bit higher. So I may be wrong. And if Andy Vassal is available and wants to bring that up, she'll know it much better than I will. And you said the other statistic
Right.
that you're looking for?
The college acceptance rate.
College acceptance rate, I believe, is around 70%. Again, I may be a little bit off, but I can certainly get you those numbers and send them to you, Joanna.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I was curious if there is a specific part of your budget where you have dedicated dollars to wellness and substance abuse education.
We do have part of our budget. Currently, in the last few years, we've been using our ESSER funds, which have come from post-pandemic or pandemic-related funds and monies. And the good news is that we've really been able to build quite a bit using the ESSER funds. As the ESSER funds dry up next year, at the end of next year, we know that that will be a big part of our 24-25 budget planning, because we will not have that as much. But yes, we do have services, and that comes through our special services department, as well as each of our schools has social workers and curriculum that they use in guidance counselors as they do SEL teaching and learning in classrooms.
Mhm. So what is the dollar amount that is dedicated to wellness and substance abuse education?
So I would have to look carefully at each school and be able to give you that dollar amount, but I'm happy to do that in another, or send it to you in an email.
Okay, because I'm wondering specifically about what resources are available to the 48% of the economically disadvantaged students and families in the school. And that to make sure that those services are also available via translation, right? Because I think that this is really critical, that all people have access to
Yes.
this support.
So we have all of our forms, and anything that, for example, free and reduced lunch, all of those forms are translated. We make sure that everyone has access to that. Anything else that might come about around support that comes from the town, we certainly offer translation services to make sure that our families have support that way. But much of it is really based on, and anything that we can provide with those additional funds through free and reduced lunch is school-based, but other situations come through the town and through outside agencies.
Yeah, I was more curious about something beyond, anything beyond the free lunch program, right?
Right. So if you want to say, certainly we have 2 federal grants that support that, support our English learners. That's not related to our specific funding towards the social economic situation. That's Title I, and that's where we've lost money. But our Title III grants go towards our multilingual learners, and we have an additional title grant that came in just recently. I didn't include it in the presentation because we're still in the process of putting it together, but it is a Title III sub-grant around immigration. And that is because we have had a larger immigrant population coming
Sure.
in. We do have some monies that we can provide services to our immigrant population. So that's something new. It's a small amount, but it's certainly something that helps.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Joanna. Jeremy?
Yeah, I had a question about sports and athletics. I was curious if the 783,000 in the budget, which seems to be a little more than 2.25%, how that relates to other school districts on a spend basis. And then separately, of the 1,700 kids in the school system, how many of them do sports?
That's a great question. So we have a very high sports participation. I'd say it's over 65%, which is amazing. That is not a normal average for most districts, but Nantucket really supports its athletics, and that's a really special thing. With regard to the funding, I'm actually going to turn this over to Martin, because he works closely with our athletics director on the revolver, which is part of the funding. And yes, our budget is much higher than other districts' budgets because of all the off-site travel that we have to do. So Martin, if there's anything specific that you might be able to share with Jeremy, I think that'd be great.
For the athletics, we usually we have a revolver where all the participant fees go into, and we usually go to it for about $100,000 to $110,000 a year, in addition to that number that you see in our operating budget. So in total, we'll spend anywhere between $850,000 and $880,000 a year, of which about $200,000 maybe or more go for transportation nowadays. We currently also use a platform called Arbiters Sports that helps us to pay referees. It's challenging. It's definitely challenging. We do have a great deal from from the local boat companies. The Highline is very generous in providing us discounted rates for our athletes so they can travel, but we're still in need of a transportation on the other side. Once we get to Hyannis, we need a bus to be waiting there for us to transport our teams to different games and venues. So I would say probably we spend I'm saying the transportation part because other districts don't have as much. They still do have transportation expenses, obviously, but not to that extent. So I would say we probably spent easily $200,000 or more than other districts in Massachusetts.
So here's a question. The 35% of the students who do not participate in sports, what efforts can you do to create additive intramurals or other things to get that percentage up higher? I know many private schools mandate students must participate in sports, so they have 100%. I know you can't quite do that, but what can you do to make it not 65%? And maybe your varsity teams, can't grow bigger, but what other things could you do to get kids to participate?
We have one of the highest.
Yeah, we have one of the highest participations in the public schools.
No, I'm not taking that away from you at all.
I
In a positive way, I'm trying to get you to raise the bar even higher.
Sure. Well, I think it's to consider that some students are that they just don't, it's not something that they connect with. So we do offer a lot of other opportunities. We have a strong music program, a strong drama program, arts and clubs and all sorts of additional after school activities, electives, etc. One thing that we do see, and we are building our intramural, especially for middle school, because we are trying very hard to move in that direction, is that, that's really helpful. Another thing is considering sports that perhaps are more adapted for people who don't want to necessarily be part of the big team. We're seeing that's where track and field is coming in, and that's where having a new track would be ideal. We do have a track and field club. It's not a varsity program, but if we get more participation, then we can certainly build that. Tennis has really been on the rise since it started a few years back. And that's been great. And now that we have new courts, that's going to just improve and increase participation, I believe. And so we're always looking, and our athletic director is always looking for additional, additional opportunities for students so that they may feel connected and be able to enjoy sports and athletics.
And just back on the track and field, long ago, where I went to school, the track field was sort of ash. It was before turf was invented. But are there other things you can do so there's no plastic in such a thing?
Well, we can have a grass. We can have a grass field. The track itself is different, and I couldn't tell you all the parameters of
Okay.
the actual track. But fields, if we wanted to take out plastic or we wanted to take out PFAS, which is the contentious substance, and the actual, just to make it clear, the PFAS that we would be using is state of the art and is actually not, it has not been proven to be dangerous or harmful. That said, we understand that the community is right now not in a place to move forward with that. Grass fields would be the alternative. So if we need to look into grass fields, then that's fine. One of the challenges is that you have to fertilize grass fields. You have to grow grass fields. So it's going to take a while before we would be able to have utilizable fields for play. And then also the maintenance of, especially with that high participation of athletics, using fields means a lot of downtime on fields so that they can grow back. So those are all pieces that have to come into play around athletics.
Got it.
Stephen, you normally have a question? Not this year?
There we go. Let me unmute and ask the annual question. Are you getting enough money?
Enough money.
Just enough money.
Yeah.
Like I turned the
Oh,
lights
that's
off.
such a good question.
Yes,
And
every year.
let me expound on it so that you can't say, yes, we're getting the perfect amount of money and not a dollar more could be spent. If you were forced to allocate an additional $1 million, what would be the top priorities that you would address?
That's a great question. Certainly it would be building more supports for again, our English learners in particular. We have more, we have certainly hopes and dreams around building our vocational programs. That's definitely an important part of moving forward. We know that literacy and the foundational literacy is also really important. So staffing around literacy programs and building that strong foundation of literacy. You know, we know though that adding staff where our enrollment isn't going up is only, you know, it's only meaningful if we have students who need that additional, those additional services. So it then can go towards, again, making changes to our facilities and grounds if we needed to, adding or improving our science labs. So those kinds of things would always be appreciated if we had additional funding. We also know that, you know, our teachers and educators deserve to have a living wage. And so that is really important going forward, knowing that, you know, they are in a place in negotiations, and we want to make sure that they are compensated appropriately for the work that they've done, especially after such a difficult 3 years. So all pieces to the puzzle that are meaningful.
Great, thank you.
Beth, a question. I'm sorry, I don't know your colleague's first name. Ms. Basil, you have your hand
Mandy.
up?
Mandy.
Mandy, okay. Mandy, you want to say something before I ask Beth my question?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to follow up with what Dr. Hallett was saying. So our graduation rate is 91.4%. That's from the graduation class of 2021. The way the DESE does graduation rate, it's always a year behind. Because we have an opportunity in the fall. So students who don't make it to graduation in June, we have an opportunity in the fall to report whether or not they graduated over the summer, like they finished coursework that they didn't have completed in June. And I also wanted to follow up on our student activities, those students that are not in sports. I would affirm what Dr. Hallett is saying, is that we do have students that really just don't want to do sports. And so they're either in theater or drama, but we also have a very active, abundant clubs and organizations for our students. We have our youth climate committee is very active. They're out, you know, doing trash pickups and planning things. They're making presentations to younger grades. So we have what I believe, and I think what we at the high school believe, is a little of something for everyone in our school.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you for helping me with the clarification. I was a little low.
So Beth, one question. I mean, we all saw in the paper, and you got to live, and you and probably Diane especially got to live it every day with some of the issues with the damages in the bathrooms. And, you know, they are my understanding, it is connected to a certain social issue that's, you know, could be a problem. Is there, in your budget, have you asked for funding to additional education around vaping and all the things that, you know, all this kind of stuff that's becoming unfortunately a larger trend? Do you have the funding to accommodate that? Not just only the funding to fix it, obviously, to fix the physical problems.
So we do have funding again in our professional services if we wanted to bring, you know, people to educate our children and make sure that they have full understanding. We've also been very lucky recently. We've been very lucky to have a support from our Friends of Nantucket Public Schools and an active parent group to bring someone just recently to talk about the dangers of substance use and vaping in particular. And that's been just recent. I mean, literally within the last week. So a week before. And so we know that this is something that we cannot ignore, and that has to be part of our budget. So as we look at the appropriations that we have in place for next year, we know that we're going to have to make sure that we have sufficient budgets for that and sufficient help with that. You know, a lot of this comes down to belonging, and it comes down to some of the challenges that we've seen in the pandemic. We know that this is a small group of students that may be causing some of these issues, and most likely they have been affected by the isolation in the pandemic and the inability to make strong relationships with the adults or each other in the building, as they've gone through and missed out on what a normal beginning of high school might be like. So we understand that, and we're really focusing on trying to change that culture. And so that is part of our upcoming budget around professional development and building more belongingness in our classrooms and in our schools.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, any other questions for Beth or Martin or Joe?
Just quickly, and this is, I think, from Martin. I was struck by the statistic you shared that, you know, payroll is eating operating expenses. That was a Pac-Man joke, I presume. But at any rate, I would like to echo kind of Stephen's question that, you know, if there are operational, structural, you know, other things that should be invested in, you know, I think the school should ask for it, and hopefully those kind of expenses can be approved as well. I don't know whether 84/16 is the right ratio or that it needs to change, but I certainly, speaking for myself, think that the school should have the resources it needs in terms of physical plant and equipment to do its job as well. So,
Brian wants to get in.
To answer your question, oh,
Okay,
sorry.
go ahead, Martin. No, go ahead,
Yeah.
Martin, and then we'll go to Brian.
Yeah, it's the split is typical, like I said, but we do have an additional, usually about $300,000 of capital appropriation every single year that goes for maintenance of our buildings as well. So that helps with that budget for repair and maintenance. We have to remember that the intermediate school, when it was new, obviously the repair and maintenance issues there were low, but now it's 6 years old, so it's going to start also slowly becoming part of our repair and maintenance project to a larger extent than it has in the past. And yes, this year the vandalism issues that have persisted throughout the district have put a dent in our budget as well. We've spent over $120,000 this year alone on fixing these problems with bathrooms, and so hopefully that goes away. But yeah, my comfort level personally, I think 80-20 split is better. But that's the reality we live in. We have to recruit. We have to be able to retain our teachers. It's been difficult, as Superintendent Hallett spoke about, and it's been difficult not just on Nantucket. So that's the reality of it. I don't believe, if that's the direction of the question, I don't believe we are sacrificing in any way maintenance of our buildings. It's just that the fact that the payroll budget is growing that much faster than the operating.
Thank you, Martin. Brian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to make two comments. I'll respond actually first to Joe, just to let you know, in Article 10, which you will be voting on near the end of the process, just to make sure that there's no changes that need to be made. There's about $2.4 million worth of capital for the school. So they come to the capital program committee with a rather robust plan, and the town does do its best to fund as much of it as possible on an annual basis. I wanted to follow up, Madam Chair, to one of the comments, the comment that Martin made with respect to the recently announced just today governor's budget, which is the starting point for the entire budget deliberations. While the revenue side may be up, it's up approximately just under 500,000. The cherry sheet assessment, the charges that the town incurs, which they net out, is up about $300,000. So our actual net change is in the neighborhood of about $200,000 right now. So it's not a plus 500,000 on the revenue side. We have $300,000 worth of additional cherry sheet charges that they charge us. So our net change is really only about 200,000 when you're calculating any impact to the levy limit. So it's not a very substantial change. And I would caution everyone that the governor's budget is only the starting point, and there's a long laundry list of things that the state wants to accomplish, the Commonwealth wants to accomplish, and there's no guarantee that that's where it's going to end. So the next revision is the House budget. The House releases their budget, they debate it, they adopt it, the Senate does the same thing, and hopefully by June 30th, we have some certainty and the governor signs a budget. But we're a very long way from knowing that number at this point. And I just want to make sure everybody understands that process, because it can change dramatically as the two legislative branches reprioritize what they want to accomplish in the budget.
Thank you, Brian. Jeremy?
Yeah, I just had a question on the school's parental involvement. Are you satisfied that enough parents are very much focused on the kids, and how would you, I guess, evaluate that?
So we would love to see more participation. You know, we have certain parent groups. We have school council, which is a combination of school administrators, teachers, and parents. And we always want to have parents involved. We do parent coffees at all of our schools. Participation has not been that great. We have just recently found an opportunity to have more parents get involved particularly in a situation that is unfortunately a crisis. So that's one thing that's always tough is, you know, parents will step in and will get involved if there's something of that's a challenge. And so the whole idea around you know, kind of changing the attitude around vaping and such, parents have certainly come to the table. We are struggling with having support in Friends of Nantucket Public Schools, so we're definitely looking for more parental support there. Things like this do ebb and wane. I mean, parent groups the participation in parent groups go up and down based on also those that are involved with their children's activities. So our athletic boosters is at a low point right now. Our multilingual parent advisory council that serves our multilingual families is quite low. It just may be the nature of what's going on right now. And we hope we can get more involvement. We try to reach out in many different ways to involve parents and get them to be partners in their children's education. It is challenging, and you know, we'll continue to fight that fight as best we can, but we would love to see more parental.
Do you need more resources in order to market to the segments where the parents may not be as involved as you might like?
I'm not sure that more resources will help. It's possible. I wouldn't know. You know, it's difficult. I think that there is just a challenge right now in getting involvement. It depends on a lot of things, and certainly our principals could tell you about that, as they do parent nights, such as literacy night and math night and things like that. There is a lot that we offer. It just seems that in these last few years, maybe this is again a result of the pandemic, but our hope is that we can get more continue to get more parental involvement. You know, people are busy, I understand, and as children grow up, parents tend to kind of taper off in their involvement. I won't say that for everyone, but certainly it's a natural part of children getting more independent and such. But we do everything we can, and we want to make sure that people know if this is a community that really needs them and that we need their support. So the more we can do, the better. I'm not sure if adding more resources or providing more parent opportunities for learning could help. We did have things in place in past years around parent academies and such. And again, we just haven't had that participation. But, you know, again, I'm willing to try anything. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Okay. I'm going to say thank you to Beth and Martin and everyone else who's on the FinCom meeting here today to discuss this budget. And thank you for all that you do for the community.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, you
Good night.
too. Thank you.
Don't give up on that field. Don't do it.
Jill needs a place to run track. So, okay, Article 11, Select Board, Supplemental Appropriation, Surfside Area Roads, Reconstruction and Transportation Improvements. Brian or Libby or whoever. Maria, I'll let Maria present. Maria's like, no, thank you. It's fine.
So this article is a continuation of the process that started a few years ago with the reconstruction of the boulevard. It's the Surfside Area Roads Reconstruction and Transportation Improvement Plan. The focus area is Lovers Lane, Montahansett Road in Orkawa. We did approve a little over 3.2 million at a previous town meeting. We have been actively working with GPI on the roadway designs for the 3 areas mentioned, including drainage improvements and multi-use path improvements and extensions for better trail connectivity. The total cost far exceeded the 3.2 million for all 3. Comes in much closer to a little over 16 million. I can tell you that as we went through this process, we kind of tried to decide, we went back and forth about splitting it up, which we had done previously and which wasn't successful, and then trying to get all of the money, remaining supplemental funding to go forward with the entirety of the project as GPI works to complete the final design for the Lovers Lane portion, then move on to Montahansett and Orkawa. So the total cost, as I mentioned, is just about right around 16 million. We have about 3.3 million, 3.3 million between all the funding sources previously approved for the remainder of this project. So we're requesting a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $13 million at town meeting. I would note that this is a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion. So the increase in the tax levy would only be for the life of the debt that's issued, and it would require requires a 2/3 majority at annual town meeting, and it would require a simple majority at the ballot for us to be able to proceed with the project.
Thank you, Brian. Questions for Brian? Seeing
Are
none,
there-
may I have,
Yeah.
Chris?
Go
First
ahead,
Chris, and-
Stephen. No.
first Chris and
Okay.
Stephen.
I was just gonna, I think this and all the ones we're gonna look at all have consistent positive recommendations from the capital program committee, right?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Stephen?
Are there visual guides available for, what these improvements look like?
There are 2 previously presented packets to the select board that I think as we do this, that we would make available the sketches and the outlines of the improvements and what they would look like.
Got it. Do you mentioned a multi-use path, is that on all of Lovers Lane and connecting Montahansett and Okerwa, or is it on portions of the project?
The idea is throughout the entire project.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Jill,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Peter,
Hi.
Stephen,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Okay, supplemental appropriation, town pier improvements.
Yes, so Madam Chair, I think the Deputy Police Chief actually did present this to Capcom. This would enable us to actually finish the installation or procure and install the new floating docks at the town pier. When we did the bids, we had a series of supplement or alternates to do, and we could only get to 3 alternates. The largest alternate was the new floating concrete docks, which came in at a little over $2.1 million. There's some additional electrical and plumbing work that would be coupled into this. The request is for 2.5 million. I've been informed that we do have a potential or grant for approximately 1 million, which would help offset some of these costs. We typically, as the majority of the FinCom probably will remember, whenever we have grant opportunities or do get grants, because the majority of those are a reimbursable grant, which we have to expend the money first, we typically ask for the entirety of the authorization and then only borrow the net difference after the reimbursements are received for the grant. And again, this is also a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion, so it would require the same 2/3 vote at annual town meeting and a majority vote at the ballot.
Thank you, Brian. Questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, Jill?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Okay, Brian, supplemental appropriation landfill closure costs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So at a previous town meeting, the town meeting through a borrowing authorization and a debt exclusion vote did authorize 14 million for the landfill closure cost. At that time, working with our engineers, Weston and Sampson, we believe that that was a reasonable estimate. However, since that time to now, we have been working with DEP and waiting for them to make a decision on the utilization of some of the previous mining material that is remained the residual, and whether we could continue to use that in capping and closing the landfill, which would potentially add additional cost if we can't. Given that time difference span between when we would have started and now, costs have been projected to rise by about approximately $5 million. That number was derived from not only from Weston and Sampson, but in working in consultation with Waste Options to come to that final number. So this would be a supplemental appropriation to the 14 million, which would push the cost to approximately 19 million. Again, this is a borrowing article with a 2/3 majority required at annual town meeting and a majority at the ballot box as well before we could proceed with this supplemental funding.
Thank
And we
you,
have not
Brian.
started, and I would add, we have not actually started the closure proceedings until we get clarification on some outstanding issues with DEP.
Thank you. Questions?
I have a question, just the 5 million versus the 14.
Mhm.
What was that's obviously a, about 38% price jump. What really was that made up of?
It's essentially, a lot of it is made up of the additional cost for material, which would be sand that we need to bring in if we could not use and reshape the material, that some of the remaining material that's there on site. Sand is very expensive to come from off island, and given the amount of sand that we need for that, there's not a purveyor on the island that would be able to meet that capacity, we don't believe.
And that was not known when they did the 14 million estimate?
The prices have continued to escalate from the time we did that. And we've been in a holding pattern for a period of time due to still waiting for DEP to make decisions on some of the discussion points that we've requested clarification on, mostly revolving around the usage of material from the site to facilitate the process.
So non-transitory inflation on sand. Okay.
And slow action by the Commonwealth.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Jill?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Denise, I motion to adopt. Thank you. Okay, select board supplemental appropriation, Walnut Road shared use path.
Madam Chair, I think this is the one that I do need to turn over to the town manager because it's the one that I'm not the most familiar with.
Sure, Brian, no problem. Libby?
Thanks, Brian. So this project has been in the works for quite some time, and we are in a position now to be able to take potential advantage of a grant, which will help fund part of the construction, not the entire construction. But if we don't take advantage of it now, and honestly, I will have to get back to you as to exactly how much it is, because it's not 4.6 million, but it is some portion of that. Is it around the 1.3, Brian, or 1 or something like that? Do you
I
know?
believe it's in the range of around 1.3 million is what we were told.
So this is hopefully going to help with the construction, but there's going to be more construction costs than this. Although, Brian, we do already have some funding. But
We had allocated some funding because we had a grant to do some portion of the design.
So it's a project that again has been in the works for quite a while. And we need to, if we're gonna proceed with it, we need to take advantage of the grant. And the design is really not all terribly close. There are right-of-way acquisitions that need to be acquired, as well as the actual engineered design along the road. There's quite a bit of permitting that is going to be needed, but this will get us going in the right direction to start this project. I don't know if Jason's still on, if he wants to add anything that I might have missed. I've been sort of peripherally involved in this project.
He's not.
Is he still on? No.
No.
Okay. Well, if you have additional questions, I'm sure we can get the answer. Of course, as you know, I have a transportation planner right now.
Libby O'Brien, do you know roughly, this is, I presume this is from the intersection with Pulpus Road out to the Wallwinnet? This is the bike path that's been in the paper?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that it's that, whatever that length is, okay.
Yep.
2.25 miles. They got 2 grants, 2016 and 18 already.
Any other questions or comments? In which case, may I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Jill?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Peter?
Hi.
Jeremy?
Hi.
Stephen?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Okay, Brian, appropriation, Nova Deer Playing Fields Complex. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not gonna read it all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that our Parks and Recs Director, Charlie Palaki, is here to kind of take you through and give you the highlights of this particular project. So I'll turn it over to him,
Thank
if
you,
that's
Brian.
okay.
That's fine. Thanks, Charlie.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Charlie.
So what we're looking to do here is to do renovation to the 2 existing grass fields and then the construction of a 3rd natural grass field at the Nova Deer location. This encompasses kind of all the work, everything from new roadway, new parking, line painting to benches and new soccer goals. I guess if there are any questions.
Are these in use every day?
Yeah, this is also kind of phase 1 of the Parks and Rec master plan for the town. Is the addition of this field. We get very high usage between our youth soccer, youth lacrosse programs, along with the adult leagues in the summer.
Thank you, Charlie. Other questions for Charlie? Joe? And
Do
then,
we,
go
do
ahead.
we expect, Charlie, do we expect this work to be done by on-island landscaping people, or is this a kind of project that you have to bring people in from the mainland?
I would love if we had some local interest. It would probably be one of the bigger excavation companies. There's quite a bit of clearing that will have to be done. It'll go out to an open bid, so hopefully we get somebody local. It will all depend on how busy everybody is and who wants to tackle the project.
Got it. Thank you.
Jill?
Sorry, Joe.
Sorry, Charlie, can you just remind me? I think we talked about this at Capcom, but how much less would this have cost had it been a turf field? An artificial turf field, excuse me.
It's tough to say because we're working on the 2 existing grass fields as well. They need some work.
Oh, right. So you included that. That's right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of other stuff in here. We're not, the current existing turf field is not being touched yet. So this is all kind of working around that to get the grass fields up and going. Once we break ground on the new grass field and get it planted, we really need to give it 18 months to kind of grow in before we can start playing it. So this will probably be a phased construction.
Yeah.
The overall, the cost difference when you start looking at artificial turf versus grass is kind of in the long run when it comes to maintenance. Water, fertilizer, personnel, and the upkeep is where the big difference is cost wise.
But the demand at the field is on the artificial turf field.
Currently I'm trying to balance getting everyone who wants to use our current turf field scheduled. It's in very high demand. It's an integral part of our early season programming, especially with our youth sports. youth soccer, youth lacrosse. They want to get out and start practicing as fast as possible, and that it's integral. Because they start playing teams off island who, as everyone knows, our weather here can be sometimes a month behind. And if our grass fields aren't growing, we don't want to prematurely damage them with the sports play.
Right. Let me ask you one more question. Do you have to use fertilizer on this field?
We do. Yeah, we did extensive soil testing last year, and then developed a fertilizer plan and program with our landscape company that's taking care of our fields.
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
Yep.
Thank you, Charlie.
Wait, well,
Peter?
same subject for just 1 second. Charlie, the initial cost of putting in an artificial turf field against a grass turf field, the grass is cheaper, is that correct?
I believe the
Initial cost.
initial cost with construction, I believe it's like $1 million difference. So it costs about $1 million more for the installation of an artificial field, because as far as when construction happens, so for us, say at Nobody, we still have to clear the land, prepare it, but then the additional cost would essentially be in the substructure of the artificial field.
Okay, so it's really the upkeep that makes the big difference going forward.
Yeah, it's the long run where grass gets more expensive because you got to, between fertilizer, water, mowers,
No,
it's.
gotcha. So let me ask you this question. I mean, with what's going on with PFAS, no one's come out with an artificial turf without PFAS in it?
They're working on it.
They're working on it, which is why we're gonna kind of hang on to our existing artificial field for the entirety of its life. And in hopes that the technology catches up to where we want to be when it comes to PFAS. They've solved kind of the infill problem a bit, getting away from the crumb rubber and the little black particles that you see when you watch professional sports games or you play in this field. They've solved that part. Now it's the kind of extrusion of the green fiber that makes up the grass. So hopefully we'll get there in the next few years as we go forward with the rest of our Parks and Rec master plan.
And thank you, Charlie.
Jeremy?
I was just curious if you could, I guess, a big picture basis, tell us how 3.8 million, creates 3 fields. It just seems like a lot of money, but obviously it's cheaper than the turf.
Sure. Well, again, it's, we're renovating kind of the entire Nobody site will get done. So like I said, that 3.8 encompasses everything from kind of looking at my notes here. There's, new parking, redoing the traffic flow in. There's quite a bit of work, obviously, with clearing the site. Yeah, getting down to the root zone, bringing that up with with for proper drainage. All the way to grass, and then again, it takes us all the way up to new soccer goals for the new field, and then we're going to be doing extensive renovation to the root zones of the other 2 fields, so they'll get tore up. Doing a lot of soil amendments in there, and then we'll be replanting and adjusting irrigation systems in the 2 existing grass fields.
Okay, so it's quite substantial work to create a good grass field. It's not just putting down grass seed on some topsoil.
Yep. Yeah. These fields, they take up a lot of abuse. And it's, we had Weston and Sampson come out and we've done extensive soil tests to see what our soil profile looks like. And, the recommendations, we're going to, get into these and kind of spruce it up to make them the best fields we can possibly have.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Charlie. Other questions? Okay. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the motion?
That was to adopt, right?
Motion to adopt, yes. Jill?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
Renewal of Board of Health Septic System Betterment Loan Program.
Article 16, my comment.
Oh, sorry, I was skipping that one. So, we're not dredging this year. No, okay. Thank you, Maria. Supplemental appropriation, Maya Comet Pond dredging.
So I
Um,
guess this, oh, you want me to do it,
Oh,
Brian?
go ahead, Libby, if you want,
Okay.
that's fine.
You can supplement it for me if you want. We have current funding to design the dredging project, and that is underway right now. So this, it's a supplemental appropriation. It's really kind of like the actual dredging. The prior appropriation was only for the engineering and the permitting. This will include some of that as well, but the total amount is estimated to be $4 million to dredge certain area of that pond, which is one of the a pond with one of the worst water quality situations of all of the Great Ponds. This is a joint project with the Land Bank and the Nantucket Pond Coalition. I actually should have asked Bob Williams to come on here because he could sum this up in about 1 minute, but he also could go on for quite some time about it. But he's really been an excellent advocate and co-partner with the town to in a lot of pond issues. So the $4 million is the total amount, and that will be offset by funding with the Land Bank and private property owners through the Pond Coalition. I don't have that breakdown, but I can get it to you if you want.
Thank you, Libby. Any questions? Chris?
Probably a better question for, what was it, Bob, you said? Has anyone mentioned how long this lasts? Like, is this an every 20-year project or an every 10-year project, or are there any
Well,
estimates on?
I can find out. I'm not quite sure. It hasn't been done to my, not at least in my time here. We've never dredged this pond.
Yeah, we talked about that in CATCOM, and what I remember is that they don't know.
Okay.
Like,
fair enough.
because I said, well, so if this mitigates the algal blooms, right, like how quick do they come back? And they said, he didn't know.
Got it.
So, you know, but
Jeremy?
It may depend a bit on inputs into the pond,
Sure
runoff
does.
and other things like that. If that can be curtailed, then it would be less, and if not, then perhaps the rate is.
So
We
Libby,
never open Maya Comet anymore, right?
No, we do not.
so is the water quality problem, is it organic, bacterial, and is it chemical?
I believe it's mostly organic materials, but also nitrogen, which can be kind of both of those things.
Right, so we're just dredging this out as opposed to opening it to the sea to clean it out?
Jeremy, I could spend probably the next 2 hours talking about what the opening of Maya Comet Pond has and
Okay.
has resulted in, but at this point, the decision was made quite some time ago not to open the pond. There are some environmental issues that occur when that happens. It's a difficult pond to control the opening of based on its topographical
Got it.
whatever you call it, shape. And just to, not to go on about it, but there's been a couple of times when that pond was open and it really drained. And the people up at the upper end of it were left with a muddy, stinky, mosquito-ridden mess for months. And so they very much bitterly complained about it. And then when the pond is overly full, sometimes people's basements flood, so they bitterly complain about it. And so this is hoped to kind of resolve water quality issues and also some of the like associated impacts on properties.
Does the sludge get taken off island then, or does it go to the
No,
land?
the sludge from the dredging, there's a plan for it. Let me find out exactly where it's going. I think it would probably go to the landfill and be used in the composter. But there was some talk about possibly Bartlett's using some of it too. When we did some dredging at Hummock Pond several years ago, much of the dredge spoils went to Bartlett's.
Dredge spoils. There we go. That's a new term.
better than gum. Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
in answer, just to follow on and answer Chris's question, according to Jeff Carlson, who just responded to me, he said, hopefully 40 to 50 years and potentially longer if we do a good job managing the inputs that Libby had mentioned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, any other questions? In which case, may I have a motion for 16?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? And seeing none, Jill,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Okay, 19, now on to 19. Renewal of Board of Health Septic System Betterment Loan Program.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So this has been quite a successful program in helping people update their septic systems. And we previously had a $2 million authorization, I believe from 3 or 4 years ago, which we have fully exhausted at this point. And the Board of Health would like to be able to continue with this program. It is a low interest loan from the state revolving fund. So, and homeowners that qualify for it and are approved by the Board of Health, once their system is completed, the payment of the repayment of the loan is added to their tax bill, to the actual tax bills, which is quarters 3 and 4. So the town has no actual cash outlay for this. They're just the intermediary who has the access to a much lower interest rate for homeowners to be able to maintain and update their septic systems.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions? Joe?
Brian, it says update their septic systems, but does that also include paying to financing connecting to a sewer if the sewer happens to run by your property?
I do believe that the connection to the sanitary sewer system, if it is running by your property, Joe, would be a qualifying event that you could access this. The majority of the time, it's always been homeowners who need to either install or update their septic system, but you are correct.
Peter?
Yeah, two questions. One is what you just said about install. So if you have an existing home and you want to put in a new system, I can understand getting a loan, but if you're building a new home, you would give them a loan?
It's repair, replacement, or upgrade. So I may have misunderstood when I talked to Roberto. So it may not include the initial installation, Peter.
Okay.
It's just
And what is
repair. Go ahead.
What is the max that you can borrow?
The maximum loan term is no more than 20 years, which is the maximum length of the borrowing through SRS program.
And what's the maximum amount?
That I don't know off the top of my head. I know it's fairly substantial because I have seen loan authorizations for extremely large amounts that ultimately didn't borrow all of it, but
I didn't know it existed. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Jeremy?
I was just, you mentioned that I think that they can get the loan if they qualify. What are the financial metrics the state uses to allow someone to use this program?
it's metrics I'm not entirely sure of the metrics because it's managed by the Board of Health, Jeremy, but we can certainly give you a copy of the application with the metrics that are required for the homeowner on that.
Okay, I'd be curious.
Anything else? Okay,
Motion to adopt.
thank you.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Nope. Jill?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. 20, Brian, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is for the request to adopt and appropriate money into a new enterprise fund. As the town continues to make an effort and a focus and a priority, the stormwater, we have recommended creating a stormwater enterprise fund to appropriately capture the costs associated with operating and maintaining.
For the perfect medication for the 20.
Sorry, we are recommending creating and adopting the legislation to adopt a enterprise fund for the stormwater. As we make that a focus, we think it would be better served being in an enterprise fund. Statutorily, it is allowed under Mass General Law. We're also recommending the transfer of $500,000 from the tax levy into that to start the process of funding it, including the potential hiring of a stormwater manager. This will initially start with the sewer director, David Gray, overseeing the program. The first year will be mainly focused on a doing what's known as a CMOM program, which I believe the committee is familiar with because we have certainly utilized that over the last 5 years with sewer. We're going to undertake the same one of identifying and cameraing all the stormwater system and being able to map it. That is also a capital article along with an additional spending for that. So the primary focus in the first year will be on engineering and understanding what state the stormwater system is in, and then move to begin a more robust program in the coming years. But we
So
believe
Brian-
it would be best to do it this way so we can identify and show the community what those costs are and how they're being funded. And if we were to ever charge any fees, which we could do going into here, they would automatically go into the operation and maintenance of the stormwater system versus in the general fund where they would just be a pooled resource.
And that was exactly my question was, it's an enterprise fund with the idea that potentially in the future, there would be fees that the town can charge in relation as and when it's appropriate.
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
All right. Other questions? Okay, seeing none.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Nope. I'm gonna go backwards. Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Okay. I'm guessing the next one is David Gray.
That would be correct, Madam Chair.
But Brian, I know how much you want to talk about sewer district map changes, but I think you should let David do it.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, David.
This article actually will help take in completely fill in an area that is in a well-known needs area of Hummock Pond North. So most of Vestal Street, Dukes Road, and all behind on Hawthorne Lane are already in the district. This just takes and fills in the missing group here that is shown on the map. Again, it's in a needs area. Pretty significantly bad soils in this area. We strongly recommend adding these into the sewer district.
Thank you. Any questions for David?
Sure, I'll go. The homeowners generally in favor, David, or is there broad support or no?
There is broad support. Most of the folks have either stressed that they possibly have septics that have failed or close to failing. So near everyone in this area, and you can see a lot of them back up to the Dukes Road area that was added multiple years ago. So they're all, some of them are actually begging, but they're all in agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No,
Motion to adopt.
Second.
further discussion and seeing none. Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you.
Do we actually make the motions on these or did,
Yes,
I thought the select board
It's a
did it as the sewer board?
the select board doesn't, or as a sewer commission?
Yeah, but okay, never mind.
Oh, well, we
Yeah.
said they can.
I'm probably flaking. It's fine.
I'm pretty sure we do, because otherwise it wouldn't be here. But maybe not.
Just Curtis.
Curtis would know.
Yeah.
Okay,
Not yet.
right, yeah. Article 75.
And thank you again. This is a citizen's request that approached our group. And this one is a little unique in the fact that originally when we looked at the Matticat sewering, this area, the force main was going to go by this. All this property was ultimately going to be added into a district as well. And it is in a needs area again. This is all on the Hummock Pond South. Soil conditions here, very, very poor. Very high water table areas. The applicant has come to us and He does have arrangements for a property owner that abuts the sewer line that is on Hummock Pond Road. And we recommend this property being added. It's going to serve a new home that is going to be built here on the property of Pumpkin Pond, I think Pumpkin Pond Farm, I guess is the name of it. But it is anyone familiar with that area, it's extremely wet.
Yeah.
Okay. Jill?
So where's it gonna tie in?
They have an easement or an agreement with one of the properties that are owned by the land bank. I want to say I think it's number 111 or somewhere generally in the area where the current force main that was installed that leads up to the homes that actually already abut this, that are already connected. So there is a force main along Hummock Pond Road, which he will be coming across an easement and tying into.
Okay, I didn't realize that there were other people on Millbrook that tied into sewer there.
Not on Millbrook, but on the Hummock Pond area in that dark blue on the map.
Oh, so it's going that way.
Yeah.
So he's going to be coming over to be, yep, it's going to be coming to the land bank property.
Who's gonna pay for all this?
The
That's
applicant,
long.
the applicant's going to be footing the bill.
So it's actually Pumpkin Pond Farm.
Yeah, but it's going over to Hummock Pond.
David, is this the manufactured home that's going in on Millbrook, or is this this property?
I am not sure that if that one's Marty's or not, but I know that that he is calling it his home. So that it's in that one corner there, that triangle area.
Okay. Yeah, I walk Millbrook all the time. I just don't.
Yeah.
Curious, so, all right, thanks.
Does Stephen have a question?
Question.
Okay.
I did invite Marty to come, but obviously he passed. So, okay.
This area is going to ultimately see more and more expansion into to the sewer districts, just because there are in the needs area. These are extremely high sensitive areas for nitrogen. So,
Yeah, what you don't see is that Hummock Pond is just off the screen to the left.
oh, this is zone, it's either zone A or zone B of that Hummock Pond outfall area. So it's in this season, very wet.
Yeah.
So I guess just to add on to that, then, is everyone gonna tie into that force main through the land bank if you keep expanding?
Ultimately, there'll be a line that would, if the sewer district gets expanded out all the way to Cisco, as it's anticipated to at some point because of the degradation of the pond with the nitrogen levels, Millbrook Road would end up, there'd be a line in Millbrook Road itself. It would not all pass across land bank property.
Gotcha. Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. Anything else? In which case, may I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Jill,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you.
I
Okay,
say, I love Tim's picture. The tick.
The tick.
okay. Establishment, Curtis Barnes, establishment of an independent sewer commission. So Curtis, would you join us at the table, please? And we did discuss this previously, so the highlights would be great.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. It seems fairly appropriate to bring this up after the last two articles. Having served as a water commissioner for the past year and finding how efficient and effective that approach is as an independent commission, it just occurred to me that a sewer commission, because water and sewer work so closely together, that a sewer commission would make some sense. And currently, the select board is the Board of Sewer Commissioners. And they are so bloody busy. It just seemed to me that to have an independent commission that could focus more on the needs and cooperate with the water company made some sense. So I made that proposal. And the original comment from town council was that it didn't have enough detail, so I did submit another paragraph that simply stated from my perspective that it would be consist of 5 elected members with staggered 3-year terms to be elected the next election and then serve 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years. Which parallels what we now do with the Water Commission. So my proposal is to put that on the ballot and to discuss it and hopefully to get it approved so we can move forward.
Thank you, Curtis. David, what's your view of town administration has its hand up? Is that you, Libby?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that I don't want anybody to go away with the idea that sewer and water do not work together. They work very, very closely together. No project is getting done right now with sewer or water without either of them working on it jointly.
Thank you, Libby.
May I ask a question about that?
Go ahead, Chris.
You know, Libby, do you think that has any bearing though? I mean, I know David and Mark are particularly working really well together. It seems like we've got the right people in the right places. But if you didn't have those individuals, would this setup that Mr. Barnes is describing somehow, in your opinion, make it any better? Maybe that's a weird question.
I don't know if it's better or worse. I'm just looking at it from the point of view of administration and having department heads. And if David left tomorrow or Mark left tomorrow, the working together would continue on.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. Thanks.
We've established it as a administrative protocol.
Great, thank you.
David, I'm interested to hear what you think about this.
I hoped you forgot me, Denise.
David, I will never forget you. Let's be clear.
Curtis has brought up some points, and I believe this was voted back in quite a few years ago, that the ability has always been there for an establishment of a separate sewer commission. Is it true everything's getting so much busier and more complicated? Yes. You know, I see how the water company commission works, and now it works. That's about all I can say. And
Okay, that's fair. All right. Thank you, David. Questions?
Does it have to be elected?
My proposal is that they be elected as the water commissioners are elected.
Yeah.
Joe?
If I could say, I mean, much as I appreciate Mr. Barnes' civic service, I oppose this idea. I think I think the fact that the water company board is as independent as it is has led to higher water rates on Nantucket over the years, while we have a gilt edge system. I don't think the coordination with town administration has been that terrific. And I really don't see any great need for this. I think the sewer commissioners operating at the select board operating as sewer commissioners works just fine. So I just don't see how this is really adding any particular benefit to the voters of Nantucket, to the citizens of Nantucket. And all due respect, Curtis, I'm not in favor of it.
Fine, you're entitled.
Jill?
Yeah, I'm not either. And some of that is just, again, adding more elected officials, even though I'm usually the pro-election person here. Finding more people to run and be on the sewer commission when we've already empowered a group of people that we elected to do it. It is governed by an elected body now, so I'm comfortable with that.
Fine.
Chris?
Have the select board made a comment on this? Stay on.
Libby, have the select board made a comment? No.
Not yet, no.
Any other questions or comments? From the committee? Is there a motion?
Motion not to adopt?
Second.
Okay, a further discussion on the motion? Okay, start with Jill.
Aye.
The motion is motion not to adopt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Joe?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Joanna? You're on mute, Joanna.
Thumbs
Forgot I
up, thumbs down.
Aye, thumbs up.
Okay, Stephen,
Aye.
Denise, I.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Curtis.
Welcome to our meeting. Oh, no, I haven't quit yet.
Yeah, you can't, you gotta come to all of them.
I gotta keep you company.
Because now we owe you.
We miss you.
Put it in your
You
pocket.
don't owe me one. You're doing fine.
Okay, home rule petition, an act amending the Nantucket Sewer Act. Chapter 396 of the Acts of 2008. David, I think this is you. Or Libby.
Yeah, Maria, can you pull it up?
Yes, just give me 1 second.
I think this is a re-submittal of a home rule petition we've approved before.
Yeah, that's what I remember it to be. That it needs to be
Yeah. This relates
Uh-huh.
to the ability of the sewer commission to officially make waivers for year-round residents, as is noted there. They don't necessarily have that authority right now. And we've had a couple of instances where people have come in and for one reason or another have requested sewer fee waivers. A little example is a couple of times there've been sewer projects that have occurred, within sewer districts. Fine, but when a private person or group puts in a sewer line, depending on where it is located, like if it's in a nitrogen sensitive area, there are requirements to tie into it, whether you on that road agreed to it or not. So we've had some people say, well, I didn't agree to this, so I don't really want to pay the fee because I wasn't expecting it. And so we're working to get better at resolving that ahead of time. But in the meantime, and again, this is a couple of years old, this home rule. Can you go down to the bottom for a second? I think there's a little note at the bottom of it that says, yeah.
2022.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is second year in, and because it came up over a year ago, initially. So it would allow the board to potentially have the authority through regulations to grant waivers in certain circumstances for things of that nature. But it requires a home rule petition.
Libby, is it need dependent?
Well, that's most likely one of the criteria that would be developed in the regulations that this home rule petition would authorize.
So Libby, this would give you with that other recommendation we made earlier today for the state funds, would give you two tools to alleviate the financial burden.
I would say yes.
And what is it, a federal requirement to tie in or a state requirement?
It is a local requirement.
It's a Nantucket requirement.
It is a Board of Health regulation.
Okay.
Quick sidebar on Board of Health. I got a response back from the Public Health Director about the questions in regard to the septic loan program, just very, very quickly so you can hear it. I asked him if there's a maximum loan amount for the septic revolver or loan qualifications. Quote, answer, not yet, but we are looking at setting a policy of $50,000 max because a single IA septic can be close to 75,000 if it includes landscaping. There's no loan qualification. You just have to be the homeowner. They're thinking of setting a policy to require it to be a year-round homeowner.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Libby. Good. Any other questions? Okay, may I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. I'm not even gonna ask. Jill. Joe,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. And we have one more article that wasn't listed, which is Article 76, the outdoor lighting. Thank you, David. We're setting you free. Thanks for being here.
The big
Good
light.
night, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
David.
night.
Thank you.
Now, are we gonna go through a presentation again with this or?
No,
She,
yeah,
do you want the motion she sent on the
Yes.
screen?
yes, please. So as you remember in our discussion on Tuesday, we asked Gail to write a motion as if she was in FinCom. And that would give us, because of the length of her article and the technical things in it, it was easier for her to give us a proposed what our motion could be, eliminating some of the things that we all as a group had challenges with in terms of its implementation and ideas. So that's what this is. It is still quite lengthy. I just want to do a quick whip around in terms of, has everyone read what Gail sent out?
Mhm.
No,
Okay.
I haven't.
No,
No.
Okay, well, you should have, honestly. So
I looked at it.
I can't find it.
it was emailed to you, Jeremy, on your town email. So I am reluctant to push this off another day, honestly. But if we have to, I'm gonna be gritting my teeth, to be fair. We've spent
I'm prepared to.
nearly 2 hours on this topic already. I think we're at a point where we should be able to make a motion. However, I will accept that if not everyone's prepared, then we can't. Comments, because I've kind of made my comment.
Yeah.
I did read through this, over the weekend and, I thought Gail did a very good job to take out some of the specifics in terms of enforcement and penalties that I thought were, I'm not sure I thought this, but appeared to be a little premature. And so she's updating the bylaw with sort of the characteristics of lighting and whatnot. I did have a couple of emails today. I think I CC'd Denise on them with her on, I forget, I think it was 102.6. There was some issues about light trespass that I was a little curious about. They seemed, the light levels, I think kind of akin to the discussion we had on noise and how the noise at the boundary could be so faint. And I was a little concerned that the light levels, the light trespass levels were so faint that if it wasn't like moonlight at the boundary, you could have neighbors not suing, but complaining about each other or, and she sent me a very nice email back. I'm not sure it really resolved the issue because it's still, whether it's 0.01 lumens, I mean, like foot candles.
Foot candles.
It's foot candles. But again, I think in the broadest sense, she did a very nice job to, I think, sort of detune the article a little bit and give administration and the town a chance to deal with the upgraded bylaws and move from there. So,
Except I think one of the things that we talked about was making it easy for people to interpret and understand, which meant one page. It's a ridiculous length and no one's gonna read it and no one's gonna follow the rules. And just for that reason alone, I would be against it. I mean, I am in favor of the concept, but I think if we do another thing that's gonna be not enforced and no one's gonna read, why are we wasting our time?
Joanna?
I disagree. I think she did a good job. She did what we asked her to do. It is simplified. I mean, I think that, the educational benefit of doing all this is significant. There is no real enforcement and we're not going to be able to do that. But I do think if we set some rules that are not vastly different from the rules we already have, it's still progress. So thanks.
Thank you. Chris?
I also think she did a pretty good job of what we asked, and I have to say, I really appreciate the spirit with which she's answered all our questions. We've made it a grueling, collectively grueling process, and I think it's been the spirit of it has been very positive and constructive. I personally would much rather see this not be a general bylaw and exist within an amendment to the HDC mission or see it within some professional staff to be able to update this, understand it, and bring forth recommendations. That being said, I think it probably is something that I feel we ought to support. I think it's probably going to get voted through. I think because it doesn't have a lot of enforcement teeth to it, I think the specifics we've been worried about people being sort of nitpicked on things is a lot less likely to happen. And it becomes more what I think it's intended to be, which is an aspirational document that we can point to and say to people, hey, did you know this bylaw exists? And if you want to be a good citizen, you're going to comply with it. And that's really kind of what we're all shooting for here. So I'm challenged by it, but I'm supportive of it as what was submitted exists.
Thank you, Chris. Other questions or comments? Jill?
Yeah, I think for me, I wasn't supportive last week, actually, and I should have said that to you all, that I wasn't supportive of updating it to even just get rid of the enforcement, because I think this is really restrictive. This is very few lights. I think if you really want to make a big difference, you should talk more about shielding, get rid of uplighting, getting into the lumens in Kelvin and really controlling that and being able to identify which lights are bothering you. I mean, people can call and make a complaint now. And I think the real lighting pollution issue is not residential. I think it is the municipality. And so to that end, I hope that Gail will work with Libby and the town to work on that. If that's something that can be addressed, I think that is the biggest issue. And it sounds like, you know, because of what she's done, it sounds like they might make some progress in that area. And I have a lot of respect for that. And I have a lot of respect for what she's done, but this is incredibly restrictive, and I can't support something just because we can't enforce it. I mean, that really goes against, we've done that before, and I usually vote against those things. I don't think that's fair to the lighting enforcement officer or to the town to put a burden on them that they can't meet. So for those reasons, I'm not supportive, but I do appreciate that she did do such hard work and that she did do what we asked her last week.
Chris?
I do think we have to consider that the motion on the floor is going to be the original motion if they're not voting on our motion, which is the edited motion.
That's fine, but I think there are plenty of people on this island who are really smart, who can stand up at town meeting. I'd be happy to stand up at town meeting and explain to you how few lights you're gonna have. You know, if this passes, and that there are a lot of excellent landscape architects, homeowners. I mean, people, when it's explained, I think they will know. And if they choose to support it in spite of that, great.
Remember, all those landscape architects are the ones who put up the wrong lighting.
No,
I
have you-
disagree with you.
No, that is not, that's not exactly what happens. Not exactly.
I see new houses going up all the time.
Yeah, but homeowners go around and do their own landscape lighting with their electrician, and who's like, okay, point, show me
Maybe-
where you want some up lighting here. That happens all the
Maybe.
time. Not everybody hires a landscape architect. That's a luxury.
Well,
That is a
buying out
luxury.
this island is a luxury.
But that is a luxury. There are plenty of people who have $4 and $5 million homes who don't hire a landscape architect. And people, and I'll tell you from my own experience, I cannot get people to buy 3,000 to 2,700 Kelvin. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's a beautiful light, beautiful color temperature. I can't get my clients to buy it. I can't. They want 3,000. That's what they're
But
comfortable with.
wouldn't this bylaw help that then? You say, hey, look, this is the rule. This is what you need to do. This isn't a nice to have, you need to have this.
I try to get them to buy shielding. I think it's shielding is the issue. Who cares how much really light you have going down on the ground?
Well, I
The
mean, these
uplights is
people-
different. The uplighting is different. The onion lamps are different. I agree with Gail about those things. I wish she had a simpler article that said, let's get rid of that. But when you fly into this island at night, what are the lights that you see that concern you? That is the municipality. That's the town.
Well, I mean, the town is gonna be bound by this bylaw too, and now admittedly, we've taken the teeth out of enforcement, but we're approving a new set of guidelines in the bylaw in terms of the kind of lighting, the brightness of the lighting, the timers on light poles for the town. I mean, again, I guess I see this as the first step, and I'm based on what Gail said in the last meeting, it sounds like she intends to work with the town and educate people and educate electricians about, you know, the Dark Skies Initiative. And
Libby said she thought it would cost like over $1 million to comply. Didn't we hear that? Didn't we hear that?
I don't remember.
Well,
I've never
Chiefs
said
did that.
anything about
Sorry.
cost. I've just said burdensome
mean,
to
I-
enforce.
I recognize that based on Libby's comments that she thinks this is gonna, you know, this is just another thing on her long list of things to do, so. it's gonna end up being a lower priority. I reckon.
I'd be perfectly happy if Libby said that she would work on it, and I don't have to pass this article to make everybody feel good. That's how, I mean, I'd be thrilled if she said, yeah, we'll work on, reducing or curfew on the lights or more shielding.
Well, it's not just the town. I mean, the town might be the biggest perpetrator, but there's
You
plenty of
are
houses.
upset about that school. That is really what the most things that I've seen. The
I
other,
think
the
people live
letters
around
we
the
got were
school.
people that had a light next door. They can already go and complain.
But Jill, she did a survey and went around and showed us a really good presentation where there are examples of houses and told us how much it would cost for those houses to fix it, and it was completely reasonable.
Yeah, but that's fine. Again, we already had like shielding, stick to shielding. Don't stick to the number of lights, because it ultimately, when you get into lumens and Kelvin, it does come down to how many lights. And she very honestly said how many lights you can have on in the questions that I sent her. On your property, if you have 1/10 of an acre, you can have an onion light. You can have 2 deck lights. Again, deck lights, perfect example. That's already downlighting. That's shielded lighting. It's on a deck.
Great.
So what's the problem with that? Why can't you have more deck lights if they're already down lights? So it doesn't totally add up to me, this shielding business.
So one of the things that, it strikes me in this whole conversation is, and Gail, I will definitely let you talk, and Baird, Bart, I see you have your hand up, and I'll get you in a minute. I want to stay within the committee at this moment. I've thought long and hard about this, and, I've kind of landed a little bit like where Chris and Joe had landed on if it's going to pass, let's pass a less, frankly, onerous version than the first version. I do not believe actually the enforcement piece has been taken out. The enforcement piece is the same. It's just you no longer need a permit. So the enforcement pretty much the same as it was, which is also in line with what was there before in the things. And I do think, though, on the day that it is going to be confusing for the voters to say, well, we have this 18-page article and then we've got a 16-page comment from the FinCom, and that's what we're voting on. So I'm challenged by that. And in the end, I have never been a huge, I have 3 things I check on, which is it good for the community? Is it good for the taxpayer? Is it good for the island? And that's clear. Yes. Is it relatively easy to implement, and can the people who implement it get it done? And in which case I'd say no, that's not, if I think about the priorities that Liberty, I've just renamed her, that Libby and town administration has on their desks, I don't see this as an easy to implement. And secondly, is it going to be easy to enforce? And no, with the current staff. So when you don't meet 2 of the 3 of my criteria, I always struggle with great idea, but can it get done? And I tend to be more practical at the end of the day around and I still go back to the straws. Everybody stopped plastic straws just in a grassroots thing.
Yeah.
So grassroots lighting, I realize everybody's like, yeah, but this would be better. Yes, it would be good. And this isn't the only way to get at this. So that's my comments around that.
Can I make one more comment about it? Because
Sure.
I do feel like this kind of goes back to also last year in fertilizer. The gentleman who brought forward the fertilizer article, he really wanted to educate people. That was really his big goal. And I think, and that was a noble goal, but I don't want to get into a habit as a committee where we think that we have to support something because we think people should be educated about it. That just doesn't jive with me with what our mission is.
Thank you, Jill. Bard, you went, Gail, I will absolutely let you talk after Bard had his hand up, but he's also disappeared, so maybe he's decided not to say anything. Okay, he's gone. Gail, your thoughts?
Hi.
Hi, Gail.
everyone. Hi. So much to respond to, not even sure what order to take it in, but maybe first I'll address Jill's objections. Focusing on shielding alone doesn't solve all the problems, and color temperature is a big issue. That's what all the blue light that's being emitted is what has been found to be so harmful to wildlife. And it looks like there's a strong connection to human health. So I think it is important to address color temperature. And in terms of lumens and brightness limits, all of that, even if it's shielded, adds to sky glow. There was a recent study that shows that all that when it's down, it becomes sort of horizontal light, but the reflection up and everything, all that still contributes to sky glow. So shielding would help a lot, but it's not going to solve all the problems. With regard to, I think it was Peter who said the ridiculous length and no one will follow. I have to respectfully disagree. I think, you know, if we educate, if the town would help me in promoting it and holding public forums and providing links to and examples of dark sky compliant products. Once you break it down, it's not that complicated to follow the 4 general requirements, and all the what I think adds to the length of the article are the exemptions and the exceptions. But if you do away with that, you're going to make it even more restrictive. But I do think people will be able to follow it. Now, with respect to the light trespass metrics that Joe mentioned, I just wanted to say what I said to Joe. I don't know that it got passed on to anybody, but those metrics are the same metrics that the LEED program uses for their light pollution reduction credit for light trespass. So I feel like if it's, you know, not too, if they don't think it's too restrictive, then I don't think it's too restrictive for Nantucket. But then I'll also add, there is an room for an exception to be made if because like, especially in the where houses are close together, if just lighting that complies with all the other requirements still exceeds those metrics, you can make the lighting enforcement officer can make an exception and not cite anyone for light trespass. So, you know, I tried to build in all kinds of balance for this, and I tried really hard to take into account everything. I felt I had come up with a pretty good thing, and I would appreciate your support. You know, I guess, I mean, I wouldn't give up on it just because if this committee voted not to adopt, I do feel like it's such an important issue, and I think there is such broad support to it. I would still bring it up at town meeting.
Thank you, Gail.
May I ask
Chris?
a question of the committee?
Yeah.
Has anyone received a negative comment on this from a member of the public?
What do you mean?
I think,
negative?
Stephen, you said something. I didn't get it personally, but did you get a letter?
Yes, I did, and I thought everybody got it. It was from Debbie Nicholson in Monomoy.
Oh, I got it. You and I, Stephen.
I didn't get it.
Because
no.
she's a friend of
Interesting.
ours, yeah.
Okay.
And it was kind of a mixed, letter.
Well, it made some good points, which I think have subsequently been addressed. Things like safety issues, or, you know, motion activated lights for people who work in the restaurant scene and, you know, come home after hours when lights wouldn't necessarily be turned off. So, you know, I think that, you know, to my satisfaction, Gail's addressed several of the issues that Debbie raised. So whereas I thought there were some good points in there, and it was, you know, I appreciated getting the letter. I'm sorry that everybody didn't receive it. If I noticed that, I would have sent it to Denise to circulate, but I didn't notice that before, and I'll do that after the meeting. Although it's too late because we're going to vote on it here tonight.
Yeah, I'll just, I mean, I also shared some of those concerns about people on shift work and whatnot, but I do think those have been addressed in the questions. I just think it's interesting. I mean, I think we've spent a lot of time raising a lot of good issues, as we should on this, but it's interesting that we've, you know, none of the public hearing or anything has anybody showed up with a concern about this, other than the concerns really raised by the town members, the town. So.
Well, I feel like that happens a lot on
Nice.
these articles.
Can I want to say something.
Who wants to say something?
Me, Joanna. I think I think the reason that we haven't heard, I mean, other than the many letters that we've all gotten in support of this, I think the other reason that we haven't heard much about this is because people are concerned about keeping the skies dark. And while they may not have dug into the technical pieces of the article, what they're sold on is keeping the skies dark. And so I agree with many of you who think that when this, regardless of whether it's the version Gail has just submitted or the original version, I think this is going to pass at the town meeting. And I do think that the second version is a better solution than the first version, because the first version is almost entirely unachievable in this moment, right? With the current staffing levels and the enforcement. So I think if we're going to make a decision, I like the second version better. And those are the reasons.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do to cut to the chase.
Yes.
Motion to adopt on Gail's version with a couple more amendments to it. So where she wrote town administrator, there is no such thing anymore. I realize that was from the earlier version in 2003, Gail, but we would have to change that to town manager. So in the comment, we'd have to, everywhere it says town administrator, we'd have to change that to town manager, Maria. And I'm looking at Maria, she's like, oh, thank you, Denise, for giving me more work. So I'm saying motion to adopt the amended, motion to adopt the FinCom comment that we outsourced to Gail. There we go. With the changes that I made regarding town administrator to town manager. And the other
That is-
changes Gail made.
That is my motion.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion, Jill?
Yes, can't Gail offer this amendment at town meeting?
No, because it's way too, I think it's way too complicated to offer such an amendment at town meeting. I mean,
Can't she do that though? Like, so we have to endorse this in order to.
or
get-
you could vote no now.
No, I know, I'm just saying we're doing this so that it's easier on her to amend it at town meeting. And that's kind of what I'm.
No, what we're doing is motion to adopt what we've written, not motion to
Yeah,
So
adopt.
it's not a comment. Our motion actually is the new bylaw
Our motion would be the new
as currently
bylaw.
drafted in this version.
That's
Yes.
would be my suggestion,
Right.
because I'm concerned that on town meeting floor, to be honest, it'll be just no, go back to my original motion to adopt, and then, say we all say no to that motion. Hypothetically, everyone says the first one is too onerous, it's got too many problems, therefore we have to say motion not to adopt. On town meeting floor, Gail does not have to present a amended version. She can just say, I'm moving this to a positive motion, and then everybody votes it in. Whereas if we say motion to adopt now on the amended motion,
Described, yeah.
then we've at least we've at least been able to address the things that we had the bigger issues with. That's my
And I
logic.
think we also demonstrate to the voters that we have spent a lot of time, and we've come up with an altered version that we think better suits the town. As opposed to, I agree with you. I think if we go to town meeting floor and Gail just stands up and say, well, I want my original motion, I think she would get it. And then
Well, but
we won't have deflected to what we think is a less onerous version, so.
yeah, again, I'm not voting on things based on what I think is gonna happen at town meeting. Gail, do we know from Gail that she won't offer this amendment on that town meeting?
I don't
She seemed,
understand your question.
she seemed supportive of what we asked of her, so she rewrote it. So I'm wondering if she would offer this as an amendment at town meeting.
So Gail,
That's an interesting question. I guess I'm not ready on the spot to make a commitment one way or the other. I mean, I do.
Because if this will be in the newspaper, I don't think it's been in the newspaper yet that I remember, this particular
I
one.
don't read the paper.
This
Sorry.
will not be in the newspaper.
Fine, but at some point, people will know about it. And when they find out about that permitting piece, I do agree with everybody here that that will be a spoiler for you. So I'm wondering if you would offer an amendment at town meeting to pull the permit aspect.
I mean, I
So-
think that's an idea, but I think the better process is we have a motion on the floor, on the table, and let's vote for it. And
Yes, I agree.
you're entitled to vote no, so.
No, I know, I'm just saying that's a good way to educate
What would our
people.
motion be today then? To not adopt?
Or if you want to take no action. You love that. That's your favorite motion. I think it's hard for us to influence someone's, I think we're creating a huge problem with other citizen articles in the future that we're rewriting their citizen articles after
We do
just
this all the time.
Yeah,
rewrite them. We took out a huge piece of what she wanted to do, actually.
Do you remember what we did with the plastics one?
yes,
We
and
eliminated-
we also didn't rewrite this. Gail rewrote this. We asked her to. She willingly rewrote this because we asked her to.
She should willingly be able to take it down to town meeting floor and make the amendment and say, I've made it less onerous.
But-
Again, if it.
But that wasn't, that Jill, that wasn't the spirit in which we asked her to do this. We
Well, I
asked her,
didn't-
we asked her to do this so that we could, as a committee, support her article. And everyone agreed on that, and you were there.
No,
You had an
not
opportunity.
everybody agreed to it. That's not fair. If Jill doesn't like
didn't
the
take a
idea, she
vote.
shouldn't have to vote
We
for it.
didn't take
No,
a
no, no,
vote on-
I'm not saying that. I'm saying when we had this conversation last week, we agreed that we would send this back to her for her to rewrite. And so I feel like, I don't know if I think it's fair for us then to say, Gail, you have to be the one to get up and explain the difference between your two things, when that's what we asked her to do.
But
Yeah,
that's,
I don't see
willing
this
to
as. Sorry, go ahead.
is Gail willing to do that? Does she like this article better, or have actually we strong-armed her into putting something that she doesn't want? But she'll take.
Only Gail can answer that.
So, I made those changes to get your support. I'm very fond of some of those provisions. I can't commit now that I wouldn't include them, I wouldn't submit this version at town meeting. I would have to think about it. So I was doing it in the spirit of trying to be reasonable and finding a good compromise. And I thought I did. I mean, it updates the standards. It creates it basically is the same enforcement scheme now, but just with updated standards. And there's value in that, but anyway, so no, I guess, Joe, I wouldn't commit right now to making the exact same revision at town meeting.
Nor did I think we were asking her to commit. I wouldn't be surprised if she called us or tried to amend it. We just said, we want to present a negotiated alternative to the town meeting floor that says, we've spent a ton of time on this. Here's the version we think is okay. She very nicely did our work for us. But I'm
did.
not surprised by her
agree.
answer here, and that doesn't change my opinion.
What?
In which case, I mean, what I've just heard, and I'm more than happy for everyone to say, Denise, you're an idiot. Just say it quietly. That's quick.
We get punchy.
It was quiet, it was very quiet.
That thing picks up everything.
It does pick up
The mic
everything.
picks up everything. Yes, it does. I can confirm.
On record.
Then I suggest we just vote on her original proposal.
We've got a motion and a second, I believe.
We
Yeah,
do. And
We have a motion in a second. So I forgot how we,
We vote.
Well, then we have to vote, if you want to vote down what we're voting on now and then reissue the. Yeah.
Or a dead pass.
Can't you entertain a motion to amend?
Well, I don't know what the amendment would be, but as long as we're in the discussion period, I'll say, I don't know why we would vote on the original motion. I mean, we're voting on this, as Chris described it, a negotiated version, which I think is more palatable for a lot of good, important reasons. And if we
Yeah,
just vote down the original motion, or excuse me, vote down the original article, we've done nothing to advance the cause of, putting forward something that is both helpful to the Dark Skies Initiative and easier on the administrative burden. And I think we're in a really bad spot.
well, I think Stephen, the point that Gail very rightly raised is she could just, town meeting floor, just go back to proposing her original.
Well, she can, but we've offered an alternative this way. You're suggesting we not offer an alternative.
Well, what I'm saying is if we're gonna end up with back on the original, in any case.
We won't necessarily. Somebody will have to vote down this version, this negotiated version, in order to get back to the original motion.
Who's sponsoring this article that we're?
It's the finance committee's motion.
Gail,
But it's our motion. Our motion gets voted on. Our motion would have to be voted down, and then the original article can be voted on. So there's a process that we're putting in place that makes it more likely that this new amended version passes.
Yeah, I understand that, but I just now feel like after what she just said, she wished she had her article back. So
Well, that's also what Gail said last time we asked her to do this. She was straight up and said, I would prefer my original article.
Yeah,
And she's gonna, from what she said, she's gonna say that at town meeting, or at least she's thinking about saying that at town meeting. And, well, Gail wants, let me let Gail talk rather than I talk for her.
Yeah, I guess I just want to clarify if I wasn't clear before. If you were to vote to adopt with changes, the changes that I made for you, I wouldn't go forward with the original article because I feel like that would be a reasonable compromise to make to get your vote to.
Okay, that's
That makes sense. If you vote not to adopt, then it's sort of back to square one. If you vote to not adopt.
what about take no action?
that's the same as not to adopt.
Well,
It is.
that's not how the voters decide. I think they feel like it's still kind of.
Well, the motion that we have on the table that's been seconded
Okay.
was motion to adopt the revised version.
okay, so let's vote on that.
That's
Take
on,
the vote.
that's on the table. So are we done with Jeremy? Go ahead, and then I'm gonna close the public comment part.
Okay. Well, I'm in favor of voting to adopt this amended version 1. 2, I think that we as a finance committee should not be afraid to fix things that we think the voters are going to want if they're not quite right. I've said that before, and I think that's what we have done here. Anyway, that's what I had to say.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Anybody else? Any other public comments? In which case, can I have a motion to close the public comment portion?
Motion to close.
In a second, I know, on the ones that we discussed more, yeah. Okay, we're closing the public comment, Joe. Can you say aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Joe,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Okay, public comment is closed. So the motion on the table is motion to adopt the amended version with the 2 changes or the administrator to town manager that I described to Maria. And it was seconded. So Jill,
No.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Oh, wait a minute, I've got to start keeping score. Sorry, when we have.
No, I'm
I've
not-
gotten so used to,
I'm the only no.
so
You're
far.
fine.
So I still want to do it. Just bear with me. Nay.
She's the best.
I'm just trying to drag this out because I hate to, I'm just gonna be so sad when I'm not sitting here with all of you in a few minutes. Let's see, okay. Stephen, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you because I was busy.
That was an aye. Aye.
Okay. Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
aye. Okay, 7 to 1, that passes. The amended version passes.
Okay.
Thank
Good.
you. Okay.
Good luck,
Can I
Gail.
just say thank you? Can I say thank you on the record? And I really appreciate your close consideration to this. I know it was a more complicated citizen warrant article than you're used to, and I really appreciate your all your good questions and for considering all my many submissions in support of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Gail, and thank you for your flexibility and willing to compromise. That was quite helpful, and I think getting this to where we are. So, okay. The date of our next meeting is Tuesday, March 7th. It's a hybrid meeting. We don't have meetings next week. March 9th is fully remote, as is March 13th. And March 14th is hybrid, and that will be our, drop dead date for motions. So everything has to be done by then. I think we've got about, if I do a quick tally, we've got about 30 left to go. A little bit less, I think. And any committee reports? Nobody wants to do committee reports at 6:30, skipping that. Any other business? No other business. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Okay, Jeremy,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Peter,
All right,
Denise, aye. Thank you, everybody.
so the 13th.
Thank you.
The 13th is fully remote.
Oh, we do have one on the 13th.